Welcome to Reframe Your Mindset for Success. Today I'm with Trevor Manning. Hi Trevor, how are you today?
Hi, Paul. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm doing all right.
Brilliant. What have you been up to this week?
I've been communicating with friends, because we all still, even though we've got some freedom now from the pandemic, we still trying to be safe, and we talk each other through things, and keep each other happy, But apart from that, I've been trying to exercise, do a lot of walking, and and just keeping myself busy.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, I always start the podcast by, talking about your story. Now, we actually worked together not too long ago, and we played some table tennis together as well. And obviously that's part of your story with being an international player. So what I do is just like you introduce you and your story to start with, if that's okay, Trevor.
Okay. Well, I can always say I'm Trevor Manning, and I left Barbados at the age of 19, after completing school. And I came to England to study nursing. And I did that in 1968 in Derbyshire. But along with my nurse training, I also wanted to play table tennis as as a hobby, and not only as a hobby, but I also wanted to play to get better. It was difficult at times trying to combine the two, but I managed to do that to some degree. But it was after I finished training and I came to Wales to do further training, and I got mixed with the Welsh players who were exposed to the English players. Then my table tennis took off, and it didn't until I was in North Wales.
Okay, and when you say it took off, because obviously you played it as a youngster and then continued to play. So how did it take off for you?
Well, playing in Derbyshire and those places, in fact, I was still studying. It was difficult to take it very, very serious. But once I got to North Wales, I started to play a county table tennis. And as a result of that, after winning some tournaments in North Wales and in the Wirral and Liverpool, Barbados invited me back then in the 80s to play over there. And that is where I was able to put something back into the Barbados table tennis, because had not for Barbados table tennis, I don't think I would be where I am today.
Right. Okay. So, and I know when we've talked previously, you played table tennis with Barbados, and did that take you across the world? Were you playing in Europe? Where were you actually playing?
Well, in the beginning, it took me around the Caribbean, because we played in the Caribbean Championships. We didn't have the exposure like the players have today. So we played mainly in the Caribbean. It is only in the 80s, when I went back to Barbados, I was fortunate to be selected not only to play in the Caribbean, but to play in Germany and Sweden. And that was really great for me. I gained a lot of experience from that. And even though I was classed as an older player there, it was still new to me at that level. So that was great.
Amazing. And you got to play against the likes of, because I remember watching the likes of Desmond Douglas when I was younger. And I know that you said you got to play with players like that. Who were the best players you played against?
Yeah, so I managed to be able. I was a member of the same club as Desmond Douglas. This was the Grove Table Tennis Club in Shropshire, Market Drayton. So I was able to practice with Desmond Douglas because he was in the same group of training, and we would have to play each other and go down the table and go up the table to get to him. But he never left the top table. We all had to get there. He would just destroy us and send us back down. But I had pleasure playing some of the top players in England, practice with them, the likes of John Suter, Nicky Mason. In those days, these were international players that I was able to practice against, and a lot of good players from the north of England and the south.
Yeah. And table tennis, you said you were playing in the 80s. So as you were playing table tennis, were you still, you qualified as a nurse? Were you still working at the same time and as well as playing?
I was working in the hospital at one point, as well as working in occupational health departments. And it was difficult, but it gave me an outlet, the table tennis, away from the challenges that you experience in hospital life, and also working in the engineering sector of occupational health. As you know, I left the occupational health engineering sector and came into the bank, which was more a corporate entity, which presented itself with, as you would know, other challenges.
Oh, absolutely. And do you think, because I mean, obviously doing both at the same time, it becomes a combination of, would it be different mindsets, or would it be the same mindset that you used to play table tennis and then do your day job?
Well, I think my mindset would have been the same, basically it would be the same, because I always strive for my confidence and having strong belief in myself, and that was how my mindset was set out to be, confidence and strong belief in myself and my perceptions. So I use that in every aspect. But obviously, in a working situation, it's different because the mindset is the same, but the behaviors would have had to be different.
Right, I'm with you. And in what ways would you say they were different then? Because I guess table tennis is quite competitive, isn't it? It's a sport at the end of the day that you're playing to win. Is that the difference? As in, because you maybe not playing to win away? Yeah,
exactly. You're playing to win in a tournament, and when you come away from the tournament, you leave that behind you. Win or lose, you can leave that behind you. But in a working environment where you're working with people's lives, people's mental health, you can't leave that behind you, because you've got to think about people, and you've got to think of how you relate to people. And and I think the most important thing in a situation like this is integrity. And if and that's something that you have to be mindful of all the time, especially in the working environment.
Yeah. And it is when we think about elite sports people, and we talk about the type of mindset that they got. But then when we actually think about work, a lot of it's transferable. But you're quite right. Situations are very different. It's about different behaviors. And obviously, when you're working with people, because I guess you've been working with people to help them with their mindset, haven't you?
Oh yes, I mean that was that's in my last 10 years of work. That was mainly what it was.
So, I mean, if I was to ask the question, based on your career playing table tennis, being an ex-international table tennis player, and being in occupational health and helping people, well, why is mindset so important?
Well, I think mindset is important. You said with helping people, the mindset is there because you need a good result, and you want a good result, not necessarily for yourself, but you want a good result for that person. But in sport, the result you want is for yourself and for your team.
I'm with you. And how would you describe then? So I guess, when you play in the international table tennis, how would you describe your mindset? Part of it you said is about self-belief.
Exactly. That's what it is. Self-belief, confidence, esteem, and a lot of it is communicating with your colleagues, teamwork.
Yeah.
And that's the same in every aspect of life. It's the teamwork, and that's important.
Okay. And what would be, from you playing games at a high level, what would be the practical tips that helped you to develop your mindset?
Well, it goes back from the time I was a little boy when I started playing table tennis in Barbados at junior level. There was a gentleman called, he's passed now, but Mr. Keith Morris, and he's always instilled in me that when you're playing for your country, you're an ambassador. It doesn't matter where you go, you're an ambassador. And I've always played sport that I am representing people, not only my mentors, but guardians, parents, because they make sacrifices in life for you. And I think the only way you can repay that sacrifice for the people is your mindset, your positive way of life, and try and make them proud as well as yourself.
Man, makes complete sense. It really does. And I guess with you mentioning, teach your parents, are they the people who've helped you to develop your mindset?
Yes, mainly my parents. And even now, my mother's 94 years old.
Oh, wow.
94, and I speak to her every day, but she's actually using WhatsApp better than me. And and when I speak to her, she can remember things going back when I first started playing table tennis, my first store, my first trophy. And the mere fact that she kept them, that illustrates to me the mindset that she would have had instilled in me,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going back to when you were a bit younger, I'm playing table tennis in the Caribbean. What was it like back then? Because obviously times were a little bit different to what they're like now.
Yes, it was exciting because it was an education, because I played for Barbados at the age of 14 as a junior, and then as a 15-year-old, I was selected in the senior team. So I played in the Caribbean Championships at the age of 15, and at 16 I won the Caribbean Junior Championship. And I was a member of the victorious Barbados team that won the actual team, the actual team competition.
Yeah.
And I had a distinction at the time of actually beating the current Caribbean champion then. And that was in 1964. Seems a long time ago, but it's still very fresh in my memory,
Oh, but yeah, and a fantastic achievement. I look at it and go, when we've played, I always thought that I was a reasonable, sort of amateur player. And it's not until I played with yourself and saw the type of spin that you can put on the ball that you just go, oh my God, it's just a different level completely. So, that's been brilliant for me to see. And obviously to have been able to have played with you has been a privilege.
Well, I enjoyed playing with you because it was always good to give something back to other players. And then when you arrange that exhibition match with Matthew Syed, the ex-England international, I mean, you saw the standard that he was above me, and you thought when I played against you that I was giving you a lot of spin. But when you saw his spin, you sort of said, "Well, this is something completely different."
It was quite incredible because as you remember, we set up, and he said, "I'm going to serve to you without any spin." And he served it to me and I whacked it back. And it's like, he went, not bad. And he said, now I'm going to put spin on it. And he put spin on it. And I hit the ball and it just went about 20 feet in the air. It was just unbelievable, So, and then when you both had a knock, just to show us, the type of level of table tennis that you were playing at, it is just incredible. I don't think a lot of people appreciate it.
And he is a far better player than I am,
I mean, he obviously played as British champion, didn't he? And
yes, he played at European level and everything, which was quite high,
Yeah, real great guy. So the fact that you've ended up in North Wales from the Caribbean. I mean, a lot of people would like to live, say, in the Caribbean or Barbados, but you settled in North Wales. Do you miss being in the Caribbean? Do you miss being back there?
I do miss back home. But when you've moved to areas, and I mean, obviously, I was married and lived in and my daughter was brought up in North Wales, so there's a deep association. So, and I live in North Wales long, and I've lived anywhere in the world, so I have got respect, for my domain, and I do enjoy living in North Wales, and I always have done. I miss Barbados, but a time comes in life where you've got to make choices. And I make the choice to live in North Wales. However, Barbados is very close to me, and every chance I get to go back, I will go back. I'm hoping that I can even spend longer in Barbados, but I think, the pandemic, halted that plan,
And you know that's interesting. You know, when we get to the pandemic, and obviously, you know, you've had a lot of life experience. You know, ex-international table tennis player, prolific career in occupational health. You've helped people with their mental health. You know, did you find the success that you've had with your mindset helped you through lockdown and the pandemic? Because it's been a trying time for all of us, hasn't it?
Oh yes. It took me to the end because, you know, I luckily I started to use the days of working in occupational health, even the table tennis, you know, and things like that. And I mean, luckily I had friends of very similar discipline, ex-nurses, and that's the time we call on each other to support. We speak to each other. We were doing something, what they call it now. We were sort of we couldn't go out for 3 months. We were protected and we were vulnerable. So we couldn't do anything apart from get on the phone and speak to each other. And I had a very good friend who would do my shopping and would drop my shopping off with me. Yeah, I was fit and able to walk and everything. And I've got to go and collect my shopping at the gate from somebody buying it for me and handing it to me. And, you know, it wasn't easy.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And I think, you know, you hit the nail on the head there. You know, when we do have difficult times, it's really important to talk to people, isn't it? And,
yes.
You know, use your support network, and that really does help. And I look at it and think that no matter how good you've been at a certain time, you know, where you've been able to control your mindset, where your mindset's been in the best place possible, there's always going to be things that happen in life that will test your mindset and test who you are. And, you know, I think with the pandemic, it's been like that for a lot of us, because it's been very challenging. But you've obviously had some great adventures and exploits. And, you know, you said you played in Germany and Sweden, and, you know, traveled backwards and forwards to Barbados. So did you, I always ask those that come onto the podcast if they've got any, you know, fun stories that they could share with us.
Well, I've got quite a few, but not you know, a lot of them would be able to talk about it here. No, but I can tell you one in particular, and I say this with, you know, with some reservation, but I remember going to Sweden. And we went to the World Championship. I was with the Barbados team in Sweden. You know, after the first week of the table tennis, most of the teams are only the big boys are in. You know, Sweden, Hungary, Japan, China, Korea. All the big teams are in. Even England were out. So on the finals night of the men's singles, we all dressed up and we all ready to go. I forgot my badge. You know, the badge, and I thought myself. And the hotel was some distant from the arena that the tournament was being held. So I had to. I thought myself, how can I get my badge? So I thought, well, I'll try to sneak in somehow, but it wasn't going to happen. Anyway, a lady who was on my team, she said, "Look, I'm gonna hand you my badge at the side door. You can come around and show it." So that's exactly what I did. And when I got to I mean, even though these guys seemed meticulous in the way they looked at badges, I thought, well, I'll hand. So I took my badge like everybody and showed it to this guy. He looked at it and he told me to go through. You know, today, even up to now, when I talk about that, I still wonder how well do these fellas look at these badges, or if I'm a perfect replica of that lady.
Oh, I tell you, it's funny. It's really funny, isn't it? And just a real quick funny story. We were due to go see someone speak a couple of weeks back, and if you remember, do you remember Levinson Wood?
I remember. Yes, yeah.
So I bought tickets to go and see him speak, and his speaking event it got moved. And the date that it got moved to, we went a couple of weeks ago, and we got there, and I thought the crowd was the normal crowd, seemed a bit older. And when we walked in, there was a stand, and it had Beth Hart's memorabilia. I thought, this is nice. And then we walked in, and I gave the woman the tickets with Levinson Wood on. She took them, ripped them, let us walk in, and guess what? We were a year early, Trevor. So there was a band set up on the stage, and we were and attention to detail, I never saw that it was 2022. So I am gonna.
That's what you call going forward, isn't it?
Absolutely, definitely forward thinking. But as you say, the tickets were handed in. And it's just amazing. It could have handed anything in, I think, to have got in. So very similar to your story. But the one my wife's not going to let me live down. So it's not very often you go to an event 1 year earlier than what you should. So to conclude then, Trevor, if you were to give the listeners, you've obviously had some amazing experiences, in your life. And if you were to give one final piece of advice around mindset and just around life, what would it be?
The main word I would use would be having self-belief and trust in your self-belief and integrity. And I think once you have those two things, self-belief and integrity, I think that's the answer. Because in life, the only thing, you can lose everything in life, but I think the only thing that you never lose is integrity.
Brilliant. And do you know what? I totally agree. I think it's so important to live by your word. So they're great final words there. So I'm gonna close off there. What have you got planned for the rest of the week? Are you catching up with friends or?
Well, I'm hoping that I can get a couple of Guinnesses later. A couple of pints of Guinness, because after this podcast, I think I need to sedate myself somehow.
Do you know what? You're talking my kind of language. Thanks very much, Trevor, for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.